lost in the World Championship match in 1981 between Anatoly Karpov and Viktor Korchnoi. This game shows how to utilize an opening novelty, as well is a great example of Karpov's technique in the endgame. This is the open variation of the Spanish opening, and it leads to more open play than the other variations. At the same time, it is quite dangerous. In the two World Championship matches in 1978 and in 1981, Korchnoi was defending the black side of this opening, and even though he won a game or two, generally Karpov managed to show a lot of ideas in how to battle this variation. In the open Spanish, White often puts a lot of pressure on the d5 pawn, and he was going to play something like bishop c2 and knight b3 and then possibly knight to d4. So to avoid all this, Black basically wants to get rid of the major weakness and to open up the center immediately. At the same time, his king is still in the center, so it's a bit of a risky strategy. And we'll see how Karpov manages to activate his pieces and exploit the drawbacks of this move. In one of the previous games here, Karpov played knight to e4, but for this game he had the novelty prepared. a4 is a very logical move. White wants to use his development advantage and open up the game before Black manages to evacuate his king from the center. At some point, White wants to take on d4 and then possibly take on b5, and the Black queen is defending both the knight on d4 and possibly the rook on a8, and in some cases it might get overloaded. Here the best move was to castle. In that case, White would take on b5 and Black would have to take with a knight, and he would have to isolate the pawns on the queen side, but at the same time he would have some good chances for defense, even though White scores pretty well from this position. In the game, Korchnoi played knight to e6, but that just fortunately loses even more time, and he falls behind further in development. White wants to put pressure on Black both on the queen side and in the center, and possibly even on the king side by playing something like f4 to f5 and then even maybe to f6. And at the moment, f5 is the threat. Black was hoping to create some counterplay on the queen side on the b file, but unfortunately the invasion of the white rook to d7 proves to be too strong. So Karpov prevented all the counterplay on the queen side, and now all of Black's pieces are sitting on the last rank, whereas White's pieces are pretty active. Now if Black captures on f6, after knight f6, king h8, rook h7, he's going to be checkmated. It's very hard for Black to create any counterplay. If he goes something like rook d3, then after king to f2, White just defends everything, and at some point he's ready to either put pressure on the 8th rank, or he could play something like rook h7 and take the pawn on a6, after which White's a pawn will become very dangerous. Even though the position has simplified, white has maintained the rook on the 7th rank, and all of black's pawns are very, very vulnerable. At the same time, it's going to take a lot of moves for black to ever attack any of white's pawns. If black exchanges rooks on d7, then the a pawn would be very hard to stop in the knight endgame. That position would be lost then as well. White has two connected passed pawns on the queen side, and he's gonna collect more of black's pawns. Either the e6 pawn or the h6 pawn are gonna die, and at the same time, it's not clear how black should stop the advance of the queen side pawns. So black resigned, and this was the end of the 1978 World Championship match. Karpov was not really afraid to give up a pawn for several moves, just as long as that helped him to improve the position of his pieces, and he made sure that the dominating rook would remain on the 7th rank. It's also an example of how opening preparation can help one to win some decisive games like this one, because the whole idea of a4 was something that Karpov prepared at home and something that Korchnoi was not really familiar with before this game.